My girlfriend posted, "Being loyal to the wrong person can waste years of your life, broken heart." 3 days after leaving me for a fitness influencer she met through Instagram DMs. I never reacted publicly or privately. Months later, she deleted the post after screenshots of him messaging married women started spreading across multiple social media pages overnight. "I just need space to figure out who I am." That's what she said. Standing in our kitchen, coffee going cold on the counter, sunlight cutting through the blinds in perfect little stripes across the floor. I remember staring at those stripes, thinking about how normal everything looked while everything was falling apart. "Space," I said back. Not a question. Not really a statement either. Just the word, sitting there between us like something neither of us wanted to pick up. "You've been distant anyway," Charlene said, and she said it casually. "The way you'd comment on the weather. We both know this hasn't been working." I didn't argue with that. Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted to lay out every dinner I'd cooked, every Saturday morning I'd driven her to her pottery class across town, every time I'd sat through a movie I had zero interest in because she wanted company. I wanted to build a case. Present evidence. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she was looking at me. Not with guilt. Not with sadness. There was something else behind her eyes. Something almost like relief. Like a decision had already been made, and she was just delivering the memo. "I think we should end things," she said. "Okay," I said. Just like that. She blinked. I think she expected more. Some kind of pushback. Maybe a plea. Maybe raised voices and slammed doors, and the whole theatrical production that breakups are supposed to be. Instead, I nodded, walked to the counter, picked up my coffee, and took a sip even though it had gone cold. She stood there for another few seconds, like she was waiting for a cue that never came. Then she left. 3 days later, I was scrolling my phone at 6 in the morning before work, and I saw it. Her post. "Being loyal to the wrong person can waste years of your life." Broken heart. Posted publicly. On her main account. The one she'd had since college. The one her family followed. The one she used to tag me in anniversary photos on. I read it twice. Then I put my phone face down on the nightstand, got up, made coffee, and got ready for work. I didn't comment. Didn't text her. Didn't send a reaction, not even a private one. People who saw it assumed it was about me. I knew something they didn't. I didn't know it then, but that moment would completely change the direction of my life. Here's what hurt more than the post itself. It wasn't the words. It wasn't even the public nature of it. The fact that her coworkers and college friends and distant relatives were liking it and dropping little heart emojis in the comments like they understood the whole story. What hurt was the timing. 3 days. She had left on a Tuesday morning, and by Friday she had turned herself into the wrong party in a quote graphic. I'd spent those 3 days quietly processing everything. Not posting. Not venting to friends. Not going through her photos looking for evidence of whatever I was already starting to suspect. Just working, going to the gym, eating cereal for dinner because I hadn't restocked the fridge yet. I was grieving privately, the way I do everything. She was already reframing the narrative publicly. Our mutual friends started texting me. Nothing too direct, just little probing messages. "Hey, you doing okay?" And saw Charlene's post. "That's a lot. You good?" I kept my answers short. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for checking in." Nobody asked me what actually happened. That detail bothered me, though I didn't say it out loud. When one person posts something emotional online, they become the story. Everyone rallies around them. The other person becomes a supporting character in someone else's drama, faceless, without context. I had been with Charlene for 3 years. 3 years of inside jokes and shared playlists and learning her coffee order by heart and knowing which topics to avoid when her mother called and she was already stressed about work. And now I was a cautionary tale in a caption. What I didn't fully understand yet, what I wouldn't understand for a few more weeks, was why the timing was so specific. 3 days exactly. Not a week later when the emotions settled. Not 2 weeks later after she'd had time to process. 3 days, almost to the hour after she walked out of our apartment. That was the detail I kept turning over in my mind, even when I told myself I was done turning things over. Something didn't add up. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a quieter, more honest version of me already knew what it was. I just wasn't ready to look at it directly yet. Our friends started posting supportive comments under her caption. Things like, "You deserve so much better," and "Your worth is not measured by who couldn't see it." Generic. Automatic. The kind of language people copy from other posts without thinking. But she was getting it, and I was getting silence, and that asymmetry sat in my chest like a stone. Still, I didn't react. Not publicly. Not privately. Not yet. I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. If you enjoy real stories like this, subscribe, because what happened next changed everything for me. I was 29 when this happened. Charlene was 27. We'd met through a mutual friend, Lamar, at a rooftop gathering in Austin in the summer 3 years before any of this. One of those warm June nights where the city looks beautiful from up high and strangers feel like old friends after an hour and a half of good conversation. She was smart, funny in a dry, unexpected way. We talked for almost 2 hours that first night about nothing in particular: travel, food, whether large cities actually make people lonelier or whether lonely people just migrate to them. Easy conversation, the kind you don't have to manufacture. We dated casually for a few months, then seriously after that. By the time we'd been together 2 years, we were living together. A 2-bedroom apartment in the South Congress area, which she'd found and I'd agreed to mostly because she was excited about it and her excitement was, at that point in our relationship, enough of a reason for me. I was working in project management for a mid-sized construction consulting firm. Stable income, decent hours, not glamorous, but genuinely satisfying most of the time. Charlene worked in marketing at a wellness brand. She was good at it. Creative, strategic, she understood how people reacted to things online in a way that I never fully did. We had talked about moving out of Austin eventually. She'd mentioned Denver. I'd thrown out Nashville. We'd never fully committed to either, but the conversation was on the table, the kind of future planning that signals something real, or at least something intended to be real. Our friends overlapped, but didn't fully merge. My closest people were Lamar and a guy named Tyler I'd worked with for years. Hers were a rotating group of women from her college days, the kind of friendships that survive on group chats and quarterly brunch meetups. On the surface, everything was fine. More than fine, honestly. But fine is a complicated word in relationships. Fine can mean stable. Fine can also mean nothing is actively on fire, but nobody's been tending the flame either. Somewhere in the middle of year 2 and the beginning of year 3, I noticed she'd started spending more time on her phone in the evenings. Not dramatically more, just different. A shift in attention that was easy to dismiss as a scroll habit, a social media thing, the ordinary noise of someone who worked in digital marketing and never fully switched off. I told myself that's all it was. I didn't push. That was one of the first quiet mistakes I made, and I wouldn't fully understand it until much later. The first real sign came about 8 months before the breakup, and I almost didn't register it as a sign at all. We were eating dinner on a Thursday night. Nothing special. Pasta I'd made from a recipe she'd saved on Pinterest months ago and asked me to try. She was on her phone while we ate. That wasn't new. We both did it sometimes. But something about the angle was different. She was tilting the screen slightly away from me, almost unconsciously, the way you'd adjust a playing hand in cards. Someone funny? I asked. Just Instagram, she said. New account or someone you know? She looked up. A half-second pause before she answered. Just a fitness page. She said it cleanly, no hesitation except that half-second I almost didn't catch. I let it go. I should have paid more attention to that. The next few weeks, I started noticing the gym thing. Charlene had always been somewhat active. Morning walks, occasional yoga classes, nothing intense. But around that time she started talking more about getting serious about her health. She bought new workout clothes. She joined a different gym, not the one 2 blocks from our apartment that she'd been a member of for a year, but a bigger one across town that she said had better equipment and better energy. Better energy. I remember thinking that was an unusual way to describe a gym. She started waking up earlier, coming home a little later. The evening phone sessions got longer. I want to be clear, none of this was wildly suspicious on its own. People go through fitness phases. People discover new motivation. People make changes that have nothing to do with anyone else. But there was something in the texture of it that I couldn't quite name. Like the changes weren't coming from inside her. They were being pulled from outside. You should get more into fitness, she told me one night. And she said it the way someone repeats something they've recently heard from someone else. I already work out, I said. I mean like, really into it. Like it becomes a lifestyle. A lifestyle, I repeated. Yeah, like it's a whole mindset shift. I didn't argue with her, but I filed that phrase away. Mindset shift. That wasn't her language. That was the language of a particular corner of the internet, the motivational fitness influencer corner, where everything is a mindset and the before and after isn't always about your body. I didn't connect those dots then. At the time, I ignored it. By month 5 before the breakup, the communication had changed in ways that were harder to dismiss. We used to talk in the evenings. Not about anything profound, Just the daily debrief. How work went, what was annoying, what was funny, what we'd eat over the weekend. The stuff that builds the connective tissue of a shared life. That started dissolving. Not all at once. Just incrementally. Like sand moving through a slow leak. She'd come home and go straight to the bedroom to change, and then be on her phone before we'd exchanged more than 6 words. Dinner was quieter. She'd reply to my stories with MMHM, and a nod that meant she'd heard the sound of my voice without registering what I'd said. I tried adjusting, planning more intentional evenings, suggesting we go out for dinner instead of cooking, recommending a short trip somewhere for a weekend. I'm just tired, she said to most of it. I have a lot on at work, she said to the rest. I believed both things, because they were both plausible. But one night, I walked past the bedroom doorway and caught a glimpse of her screen before she turned it over. A DM thread. Open. Active. Whoever she was talking to had just sent something, and she was typing back quickly, smiling slightly. Not the kind of tired someone shows when they have a lot on at work. Hey, I said from the doorway. She startled. Turned the phone over. Hey, she said back, and the smile disappeared so fast I almost second-guessed whether I'd seen it at all. Who you talking to? Just someone from the gym, she said. We're planning a group workout. Group workout? I nodded. Walked away. That detail would matter later. The last 2 months before the end were the loneliest I'd felt in years, maybe ever, and the cruelest part was that I was lonely while still living with someone. That specific kind of loneliness, where there's another person in the apartment, eating meals near you and sleeping in the same bed, but you might as well be in different time zones. I mentioned it once. I feel like we've been pretty disconnected lately, I said one Sunday morning. She looked up from her phone. I've just had a lot on my mind, she said. Anything you want to talk about? Not really, she said. I just need to figure some things out. Figure some things out. I nodded. I didn't push. I told myself space was healthy. I told myself not to crowd her. I told myself that the right move was to give her room and let her come back to me when she was ready. I didn't understand what figuring things out actually meant in this context. Not yet. But the evidence was collecting quietly, the way water collects in a basement you haven't checked in a while. And one morning, without any dramatic build-up, the floor was going to give. I found out on a Wednesday. Not from her. Not from a confession or a carefully worded conversation or any of the ways these things are supposed to happen in an honest relationship. I found out from Tyler. We'd grabbed lunch near his office. Halfway through the meal, he went quiet in a specific way. The way someone goes quiet when they're deciding whether to tell you something. What? I said. I don't know if I should say anything, he said. That's never a good opening, I said. He picked up his phone, scrolled for a moment, and slid it across the table. An Instagram profile. The handle was something like @CoachDonovan.fit, a fitness account, the kind with a blue-tinted aesthetic and photos of a guy in his early 30s who very clearly spent most of his waking hours managing his appearance. Donovan. Chiseled jawline, custom workout programs advertised in the bio, quotes about discipline and the grind in every third caption. About 80,000 followers. Keep scrolling, Tyler said. I scrolled down his recent posts. And there she was, Charlene, in the background of a gym photo, but clearly her jacket, her hair, the specific way she stood with her weight shifted to one side. Then I went to his story archive. A short video clip from what looked like a weekend morning, outdoor brunch somewhere, group of people laughing. Charlene in the frame again. This time facing forward, clearly visible, clearly comfortable. The timestamp on that story was 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. We were together 6 weeks ago. I handed Tyler his phone back without saying anything. I'm sorry, man, he said. When did you find this? I asked. A few days ago. I went back and forth on whether to say anything. No, it's good that you did. I finished my lunch. We talked about other things. I drove back to my office and sat at my desk for the rest of the afternoon and did my work because that was the next thing to do. That evening I came home and Charlene was already there, making tea in the kitchen. I watched her for a moment from the doorway. She hadn't heard me come in. I noticed she was on her phone, texting someone, and she was doing that thing again. That slight angling of the screen, that small private gesture that she didn't even seem conscious of. Hey, I said. Hey, she said, not looking up. How was your day? Fine, she said. Busy. I stood there for a moment, looking at her the way you look at a place you know you're about to leave. I know about Donovan, I said. The stillness that followed was total. She set her phone down on the counter. Slowly. The way you set something down when you need both hands free and a second to think. She turned around. I want to describe her face in that moment, But the honest truth is that it didn't show what I expected. There was no collapse, no flood of guilt. It was more like assessment, like she was calculating something. How long? I asked. It's not what you think, she started. Charlene, I said. The single word was enough. She stopped. A few months, she said quietly. A few months. I did the math quickly, privately. A few months put us back before the gym change, before the evening silences, before the figuring things out. It put us back at that dinner table with the pasta I'd made from her Pinterest recipe and the slightly angled phone screen. Okay, I said. I wasn't trying to hurt you, she said. I know. She started. Charlene, I said again. You don't have to explain it. She looked confused by that. I think she'd expected a different scene. I think we're done, I said. I'll figure out the apartment. You're not going to. What? I asked. She didn't finish the sentence. I walked to the bedroom, changed into gym clothes, picked up my headphones, and left the apartment. I ran 6 miles that night without a plan or a route, just moving through the city with music loud enough to fill every available space in my head. When I got back, she was gone. Left a few things. Took the rest. 2 days later, she was back for what remained, while I was at work. That same day, she posted the caption, "Being loyal to the wrong person can waste years of your life. Broken heart." I read it. I put my phone down, and I went quiet in a way that would last for months. People expected something from me. I could feel it the way you feel atmospheric pressure before rain. Not visible, but present. Friends were watching my social media. Mutual connections were refreshing her profile, and then mine, waiting for the response post, the subtweet, the indirect caption about growing through what you go through. It never came. I went quiet on Instagram completely. Not deactivated, just dormant. No posts, no stories, no likes on her content. Nothing that indicated I was watching or reacting, or even aware that the world was still turning in her direction. I'm aware that this probably frustrated her more than anything I could have said. Silence, when someone expects noise, is its own kind of statement. But I want to be honest, I wasn't being strategic about it. I wasn't sitting somewhere plotting the quiet exit like a chess move. I was genuinely just exhausted, and the only thing that felt clean was not adding to the noise. So I focused on what was in front of me. Work first. I had been coasting professionally for a while, not underperforming, but not pushing either. The kind of comfortable plateau that a stable relationship can sometimes enable, where you're satisfied enough with your personal life that ambition takes a back seat. With all that gone, I redirected. I started arriving earlier and leaving later. Not performatively grinding, actually engaging with the work in a way I hadn't in months. I took on a project coordination role for a larger commercial build that had been sitting on my manager's desk waiting for someone to step into it. Got involved in the planning stages, the contractor negotiations, the parts of the job that were more complex and, frankly, better for my career trajectory. Within 6 weeks, my manager pulled me aside and mentioned a senior position opening up. I applied. The gym became different too. Before, I worked out casually, consistently, but without real intention. 3 times a week, same routine, minimal tracking, just enough to feel like I was doing something. I started working with a trainer named Marcus who trained out of a gym on the east side of the city. Former college athlete, straightforward in a way I needed. Not motivational poster energy, just practical. We built an actual program. Tracked it. Adjusted it. Within 2 months, I was stronger than I'd been in my adult life. I want to be careful not to make this sound like a revenge body story, because it wasn't that. Charlene and Donovan and all of it was not what I was thinking about at 6 in the morning on the bench press. I was thinking about what I was building, and that was a new thought for me. The apartment helped too. With her gone, I had full control of the space for the first time. I repainted the living room a color I'd wanted for a year, moved the furniture around, cleared out the shared closet, and turned the extra space into something functional. It sounds small, but there's something about reclaiming a physical space that mirrors reclaiming something internal. Lamar checked in regularly. He'd call, and we'd talk honestly, the way old friends do when they're not trying to manage your emotions for you. "You doing okay for real?" he asked about a month after. "Yeah," I said. "Better than I expected." "You're not just saying that." "I'm not just saying that." He was quiet for a moment. "She posted again," he said. "Photo with him at some beach somewhere." "I know," I said. "You're not bothered?" "I'm working on it," I said, which was honest. But no, not in the way I used to be. Charlene had not reached out. I'd expected a message at some point, some version of checking in or explaining herself further or testing the temperature of whatever I was feeling. It never came. I wasn't sure if that was confidence or avoidance. Probably both. And I stayed quiet, and I stayed consistent, and I kept going to work and the gym and out to dinner with Lamar and Tyler on weekends. And the world kept turning, and I was still standing in it. That was enough. For a while, that was everything. But things have a way of moving even when you're standing still. And somewhere out there, something was already beginning to unravel. The first thing I heard came from Tyler about 4 months after the breakup. We were watching a game at his place on a Saturday, and he mentioned it almost offhand. "You know that guy Donovan? The fitness guy?" "I know who he is," I said. "Apparently he got into some drama online." "What kind of drama?" Tyler shrugged. "Something about DMs. I don't have the details. Saw someone mention it in the comments of one of his posts. I filed it away. Didn't go looking for it." A week passed. Then Lamar texted me. "Bro, you seen what's happening with Donovan?" I called him instead of texting back. "Tell me," I said. What Lamar laid out over the next 15 minutes was the beginning of what would become a slow and very public unraveling. Screenshots. Someone had posted a thread, not on Instagram, but on Twitter, and it had started spreading to Reddit and then back to Instagram through reposts and quote shares. The screenshots were of DM conversations. Private messages from Donovan's account to women who were not Charlene. Multiple women. And not just single women or women whose situations were ambiguous. Married women. The messages were the specific kind of bold that only exists when someone believes they'll never be caught. Complimentary in that calculated way, escalating quickly, clearly practiced. The same lines, nearly word for word, sent to different women. How did the screenshots surface? I asked Lamar. Apparently one of the women he messaged showed her husband. The husband went looking and found other women who had received similar messages. They coordinated. I sat with that for a moment. "How many?" I asked. "The thread has at least 6. People are saying there are more." "How old are the messages?" "That's the thing," Lamar said, and his voice did something careful. "Some of them are recent. Like, within the last couple months recent. Within the last couple months. Charlene had been with him for roughly 5 months before she ended things with me, and they'd been together publicly for about 4 months since. So the overlap was significant." "She knows?" I asked. "I would assume so by now," Lamar said. "It's everywhere." I didn't say anything. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. And then something strange happened. I actually was fine. There was no surge of satisfaction, no vindication high, no urge to screenshot the thread and send it to anyone. What I felt was closer to a very quiet sadness, the kind you feel when you see something tragic that you saw coming from a distance but couldn't stop. I felt sad for Charlene. Not in a pitying way. Not in a way that wanted anything from her or needed anything in return. Just genuinely, plainly sad that she'd blown up something real for something that had turned out to be exactly as hollow as it looked. The thread kept spreading. By the end of that week, it had reached several major gossip and drama pages. People were tagging Donovan's sponsors. He had a few fitness supplement deals, a gym equipment partnership, asking them to comment. Screenshots were being compiled into carousels. His comment section turned into a battlefield. He posted a video response. I watched it once, for context. It was the standard modern apology non-apology, carefully worded, filmed in soft lighting, long pauses for effect, language about not being in a good place, and going on a journey of growth. The comments were not kind. His follower count, which had been around 80,000 when Tyler first showed me his profile, started visibly dropping. Within 2 weeks, he'd lost nearly 30,000 followers. Then his supplement brand quietly removed him from their website. No announcement. His page just disappeared from their ambassador section. The gym equipment partnership removed his affiliate link without comment. That's how those things go, not with confrontation, but with deletion. Meanwhile, somewhere in all of this, Charlene was living through the public discovery that the person she'd publicly chosen, the person she'd implicitly invoked with her loyal to the wrong person post, had been sending private messages to married women, possibly while she was with him. I thought about that caption often during those weeks. Being loyal to the wrong person can waste years of your life. There's a particular kind of irony that doesn't announce itself. It just settles. Quietly. Permanently. About a week after the thread peaked, I noticed the post was gone. Deleted. No announcement. No replacement post. No explanation. Just gone. I didn't mention it to anyone. But I noticed. And I sat with the strange weight of that silence. 2 silences meeting each other, hers and mine, on completely different terms. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being the person who stays quiet. You don't feel like you're winning. It doesn't feel strategic in real time. Most days it just feels like you're keeping yourself together with ordinary decisions. Going to work, going to the gym, eating food, getting sleep, calling the people who care about you. It's only when you look back that you see what the silence was actually protecting. My reputation, for one thing. In the weeks after the Donovan thread spread, people who knew both of us started recalibrating quietly. Nobody said anything dramatic to me, but I noticed the shift in how certain mutual contacts interacted with me online and in person. A little more warmth, a little more respect. The man who stayed silent while being publicly painted as the wrong person and then said nothing when the story corrected itself turns out to look a lot better in retrospect than the man who would have argued his case in a comment section. I understand that differently now than I did then. There was something else I hadn't told anyone, not even Tyler or Lamar. About 3 weeks before everything with Donovan blew up, I had a conversation with Veronica, one of Charlene's closer friends from college. We ran into each other at a coffee shop near the University District. Awkward at first. The kind of encounter where both people have to decide in about 2 seconds whether to acknowledge each other or study their phone screens with sudden deep interest. We acknowledged each other. She bought a coffee. I was on my way out. We stood outside for maybe 10 minutes. She told me she ended things because she felt like you weren't engaged anymore, Veronica said, fairly early in the conversation. Not accusatory, just offering me context I didn't have. That's fair, I said. Is it? She asked. I looked at her. She was already emotionally somewhere else for months before she ended it, Veronica said. I knew about Donovan before she told me officially. I told her it was a bad idea. She didn't want to hear it. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She shrugged, looking a little uncomfortable. Because that caption she posted was not right, she said. You know what that implied. You didn't deserve that. And I didn't say anything at the time, and I should have. I thanked her. Genuinely. We went our separate ways. I thought about that conversation a lot in the weeks that followed, especially after the screenshot spread. The narrative Charlene had constructed, loyal to the wrong person, was retroactively about me, designed to make her exit look like clarity, like she'd woken up and chosen better. But Veronica's version matched what I'd already suspected. The disengagement she described in me was real, but it was a response to the emotional distance she'd already created, not the cause of it. I wasn't the problem she'd made me out to be. I wasn't perfect either. Nobody is. But I hadn't been the wrong person. I'd been the person she left for someone else while he was privately messaging married women, which is a significantly different thing. About 2 months after the thread peaked, I got the message. It came through Instagram. A short, simple DM. Hey, I know this is weird. Can we talk? Charlene. I read it a few times. I thought about not responding. I thought about responding with something cold or something pointed, something that carried the weight of everything without needing to spell it out. Instead, I wrote back. What's up? Neutral. Direct. Not warm. Not hostile. She responded quickly. I wanted to apologize. For the post. That wasn't fair to you. I didn't answer right away. I set the phone down and went to the kitchen and made coffee and came back to it. I appreciate that, I wrote. Genuinely. You didn't deserve that, she wrote. No, I agreed. There was a pause in the messages, that stopping typing thing that means someone is rewriting what they were going to say. Things didn't work out the way I thought they would, she wrote finally. I understood what that meant. I'm sorry to hear that, I wrote. And I meant it. Not sarcastically. Not performatively. Actually meant it. You seem like you're doing really well, she wrote. I've seen some of your stuff. The promotion. I had posted about the senior project manager role. Not a big deal post, just a brief mention. Yeah, I said. It's going well. Another pause. I don't expect anything, she wrote. I just wanted you to know I was sorry. I know, I wrote back. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself, Charlene. That was the end of the conversation. She didn't respond after that. I closed the app and put my phone in my pocket and went about the rest of my day with something that felt, for the first time in a long time, like actual completion. Not relief, exactly. Not victory. Just done. The open thing was closed. I think about that Tuesday morning sometimes. The coffee going cold on the counter. The light through the blinds. Her standing there with that expression I couldn't fully read, the one that was already somewhere else. I think about what the version of me in that moment believed the next year of his life was going to look like. Grief. Recovery. Maybe bitterness. The kind that hardens slowly into something permanent if you're not careful. That's not what happened. The senior project manager promotion came through about 5 months after the breakup. More responsibility, more money, a clearer upward path than I'd had before. I moved into a better apartment in a neighborhood I'd always wanted to live in. Less shared history, more mine. Marcus, my trainer, entered me in a local fitness competition about 6 months in, more as a benchmark than anything competitive. I placed third, stood on a platform, and felt genuinely, physically strong in a way I hadn't since my early 20s. I started doing more things alone that I'd always assumed required company. Went to a concert by myself in the spring. Drove down to the Texas Hill Country for a long weekend with a cooler and a playlist and nothing scheduled. I came back from that trip different in a small but real way. Lamar noticed. "You seem settled," he said one night over dinner. "Settled how?" I asked. "Like you know where you're standing," he said. "Some people never get that." I thought about that for a while. Donovan's account recovered somewhat. He lost a major portion of his audience. But the internet has a short memory for everything except the things it decides to remember forever, and his particular situation fell into the former category. Last I checked, he still posted. Fewer followers. No more supplement deals. The aesthetic was the same. People are resilient in all kinds of ways. Charlene, from what Veronica told me later, moved to Portland. New job, new city, the kind of reset that doesn't fix the underlying thing but gives you enough distance from it to breathe. I don't wish her badly. I want to be clear about that. She made choices that were hurtful, and the post was unfair, and the whole exit was handled in a way she herself eventually acknowledged wasn't right. But holding on to that, cataloging the wrongs, maintaining the grievance, takes up space that I decided I needed for other things. What I know now that I didn't know on that Tuesday morning is this. The silence I chose wasn't weakness. It looked like nothing from the outside. No drama, no response, no public counter-narrative. But inside it, quietly and without announcement, I was building something. And what Charlene called wasting years. Those same years, the project management experience, the relationship I'd put effort into, the version of myself that knew how to stay calm when everything was loud. All of that had made me exactly who I was, standing in that better apartment, in that better position, with that clearer sense of direction. Nothing was wasted. The things that break you cleanly, without anger, without revenge, without the noise of a public argument. Those things have a way of leaving the ground clear. And what you build on clear ground is entirely yours. I didn't know it then, but I know it now. And that's enough.